Welcome to the Pure Worship Convention of the Jehovah's Witness cult, filled with manipulation, cult rhetoric, and the pecs of Jesus Christ. So let's break it down. The first speech is the chairman's address, which says exactly what we all expected to say. He acknowledges that everyone is here, and he introduces the topic, in this case, pure worship. This goes through the motions just like you would imagine. It's so glad to see you're here. For some of you, it might have been difficult to fit this in your schedule, but it's going to be so worth it.
Maybe even forego financial advantages to attend all 3 sessions here. But a question: does God notice and appreciate your efforts?
Riveting stuff. And then he introduces the topic of the convention, pure worship, because you see, only Jehovah's Witnesses do that, but that's spoilers. He is going to get there through leading questions, just like cults always do.
What identifies those who practice pure worship today? Well, let's consider 6 tests briefly. Test number 1, Matthew 4, verse 10.
The 6 things are that pure worship must only worship Jehovah, that involves love and affection for God's Son, not Jesus, just God's Son, and that it has to be the truth, which is no problem to Jehovah's Witnesses because they are the truth. The other 3 are that the truth needs to be preached, which Jehovah's Witnesses believe they do by standing next to cards while playing Candy Rush and sipping coffee, so that's covered. That it involves having love for one another, which is also covered because that's mandatory in this cult. And by remaining no part of the world, which Jehovah's Witnesses do by their selection of movies and by refusing to associate with anyone who isn't part of the cult. This is a condensed version of the Jehovah's Witness checklist that the leadership came up with to check if they are in the right religion. And nowadays, half of it barely applies, like how little they care, talk about, or study Jesus, the name of God, which this speech barely mentions, saying the truth, which they don't do, or even preaching, which they do now less than ever. The speaker talks a bit about how they're going to show the next parts of their most boring drama yet, the Jesus drama, only to play a video of yet a second introduction to the convention, this time by none other than Samuel Hurd.
On behalf of the governing body, I warmly welcome you to the Pure Worship Convention. Last year's Declare the Good News Convention was epic.
Yeah, you thought they were gonna leave out the governing body? Of course not. This follows the trend that they've been doing in conventions, where instead of giving the introduction speech, they just have some guy give it pretty much unchanged, only for him to play a video with a governing body member introducing you for the second time to the convention. That way, they get all the credit, they get to appear all over the convention, and they don't even have to record a full speech. Long gone are the days when the leaders of this religion would spend months and months writing long series of badly written books. Nowadays, they don't even spend half an hour recording the speech someone else probably wrote. Sammy goes on to literally do the exact same thing that the other guy did. Introduce the convention, talk about how it's themed around their Jesus drama, and talk about what the convention is going to be about. But this time, over a green screen, so you don't see that they probably did this in his bedroom.
Episode 2 will be shown in 2 parts, today and tomorrow.
He does this for about 5 minutes before we go back to the speaker, who painstakingly goes through each item in the program, telling us what it's going to be about.
Then we'll learn more about the 7 Bible characters introduced in episode 2. Men who loved pure worship. John the Baptist, Andrew, Peter, John, James, Philip, Nathaniel. So it's exciting.
I bet. He keeps going for way longer than anyone will listen to. And then he shows a trailer of what we're about to see anyway. Because, you should go through what we're going to see in the convention at least 3 times before the convention starts. This is exactly the same kind of introduction speech that they have done in the convention over and over and over again for decades. And it feels tired. Not only because they introduced this over and over again, but because the convention itself feels like it's running out of ideas. Conventions were made as events where the leadership would unveil new books that you could buy, where you would learn the new things that the leaders had discovered about the Bible, and the speeches were to support whatever the new book said. So there was at least some information to look for, even if the speeches were always boring. And you had the drama to look forward to, a little production set up by local cult members where they wore typical clothing of biblical times and mouthed along pre-recorded dialogue while pretending to act. And it had a real charm to it in a way school theater has, where everyone understands that none of them are actors, just people doing their best. If you were a Jehovah's Witness, you probably knew several people acting in the drama, which made it extra exciting. This convention is none of that. There's no new light, and there are no new books with new Bible understanding either. They don't do that anymore. If you're a Jehovah's Witness, you will not learn anything new. Instead, the convention is themed around the drama, which this time is completely pre-recorded. Not only does this remove all the charm of a drama played by locals, but this drama in particular isn't even the full story. It's just a fraction of the Jesus drama that they've been filming, which is their most boring drama yet. Conventions have never been varied, don't get me wrong, but this convention feels especially similar to others because it's pretty much the same convention as last year's and the same convention as next year's. An event where Jehovah's Witnesses will learn nothing new, surrounded by the most boring Jehovah's Witness production ever made, after removing any charm or excitement from this event. Instead, the only thing that has changed is that now we have governing body members appearing all throughout the convention. This is why Jehovah's Witnesses are tired and bored of this cult, because not only has this cult systematically removed the few sources of excitement or wonder from their doctrine, it's also more and more about exclusively watching boring pre-recorded speeches that won't teach them anything new, given by even more boring speakers, either from your house, from the Kingdom Hall, or from wherever they're having the convention. And the chairman wants you to know that this is how you know Jehovah cares for you.
Don't miss any of it. Brothers and sisters, does this not indicate that Jehovah is keenly interested in us and cares about us?
Hey, at least we got the chairman's address out of the way, huh? And instead, they break protocol and start by showing us the very first part of their new Jesus drama. Because remember, this whole convention is around this drama that starts with people getting baptized while wearing a full set of clothes.
In those days, John the Baptist came preaching in the wilderness of Judea.
I've already made a whole video about this part of the drama, so I won't dwell on the details. Suffice to say, this is all about rewriting the Bible so it fits within the Jehovah's Witness standards and sensibilities. And since nowadays Jehovah's Witnesses are required to cover themselves while getting baptized, then they retroactively represent ancient Christianity, like that. As if they got baptized in their full outfits, which they never took off. Not forgetting in the river, not forgetting them dry. They stayed wet and cold for the rest of the day. This dramatization follows what the latest drama started, so all the lines, whether from people in the drama or in the narration, are lifted from the Jehovah's Witness translation of the Bible, and then recited in the most boring way possible, even when it sounds weird or when it does not fit with what we're seeing.
Now John was clothed with camel's hair and had a leather belt around his waist.
That guy is very clearly not clothed in camel's leather. That is very clearly woven fabric. This drama goes on with impassionate speeches by everyone and with John baptizing fully clothed people until Jesus comes in and wants to be the first person to be baptized while half naked because he's really proud of his gains at the gym or something before getting his Jesus conscience downloaded into him, just like Jehovah's Witnesses teach. And it's such an early progressive move from the early 2000s to choose a black man for the role of God.
This is my son, the beloved. whom I have approved.
That's right, AI James Earl Jones is the official voice of God according to Jehovah's Witnesses. Jesus then goes into the desert for his 40 days of fasting before getting tempted by the devil. He refuses to turn the stones into loaves of bread, but then he is super scared when the devil teleports him to the edge of a tall wall, because I guess the Jehovah's Witness Jesus is afraid of heights, before getting teletransported again to an impossible cliff where Jesus can see what appears to be a badly rendered version of Las Vegas. Jesus, disappointed by the choppy CGI, rebukes Satan one last time.
Go away, Satan, for it is written, "It is Jehovah your God you must worship, and it is to him alone you must render sacred service."
Can you believe that was some of the best acting we've had in this drama? This part of the drama ends with the most doopy angels you've seen coming to the rescue of Jesus, although pretty late, because if they had done this just 20 minutes earlier with their miraculously made provisions, Satan wouldn't have been able to tempt Jesus to miraculously acquire provisions. However, it's time for a Jehovah's Witness convention favorite, a symposium, meaning a series of boring speeches that could have been just one long, boring speech. But in this symposium, we finally get to what this convention is all about, which is rewriting the story of Jesus so it can fit within their narrative.
Do you get excited when you learn that you will hear a talk about prophecies?
Yeah, we get it. You're quirky in a Jehovah's Witness approved way. This speech reminds Jehovah's Witnesses about the prophecies that they believe in, like the paradise and everlasting life, before showing a short video of the prophecies that came true with Jesus.
Numerous messianic prophecies were fulfilled in Jesus. The fulfillment of multiple prophecies reveals who the promised Messiah is.
And your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you are to name him John. Holy Spirit will come upon you, and for that reason, the one who is born will be called God's Son.
Joseph also went up from Galilee to David's city, which is called Bethlehem.
Jehovah's angel appeared to Joseph in a dream. So Joseph got up and by night took along the young child and the child's mother and went into Egypt. And he came and settled in a city named Nazareth, in order to fulfill what was spoken through the prophets. He will be called a Nazarene. The true light that gives light to every sort of man was about to come in.
This is mostly Christian reinterpretation of the Old Testament to connect it to their new writings that became the New Testament. Kinda like how Mormons think Jesus talked about having other sheep because he was referencing the Book of Mormon. It's just post ad hoc rationalization, or however that's called. The speaker then shows a clip of a half-naked Jesus getting baptized for a third time so far in the convention.
The heavens were opened up, and he saw God's Spirit descending like a dove and coming.
He does this to remind Jehovah's Witnesses about the belief that this was a fulfillment of prophecy, just like most Christians believe, before talking about their own interpretation of the Bible, showing us one of their weird and completely anti-biblical beliefs.
Do you note there in verse 16, it tells us the heavens were opened up? Well, that expression likely indicates that at the time of his baptism, God restored Jesus' memory of his pre-human existence. He could recall all the things that he heard and saw his Father say and do. Jesus also apparently came to understand the full scope of his role as the Messiah, including the prophecies that he would fulfill.
You can tell by all the qualifiers, but Jehovah's Witnesses believe that Jesus was pretty much a normal yet perfect young human being with all memory of his heavenly existence completely severed off since he was born until after he got baptized at the age of 33. That is when he got a heavenly download of his previous life and his two existences reintegrated, leaving him so stunned that he needed to go on a 40-day fast to process it all. And their biblical proof? The heavens opened up. It says right there in the Bible. What else could that mean? Do you see why it's pretty much impossible to read the Bible by itself and arrive to a Jehovah's Witness understanding of it? Because most of their beliefs are as unfounded as this one. And the Jehovah's Witnesses really depend on their followers being ignorant in the Bible. This whole speech is about how amazing it is that Bible prophecies come true. And how amazing it is when that happens, except it accidentally shows us just how little Jehovah's Witnesses know about the Bible.
This prophecy was fulfilled when God spoke from heaven at Jesus' baptism. What made that so amazing or remarkable? Well, apparently, that was the first time that humans had ever heard Jehovah's voice.
No, it wasn't. He goes on to say that every other time was probably God using an intermediary, except that's literally not true. According to the Bible, humans have heard the voice of God all the way back since Adam was a thing. God not only directly commands Adam to do stuff, it's implied that he comes down and walks around with Adam on a regular basis. This is yet another example of the Jehovah's Witness adding a completely unbiblical interpretation to the Bible for no reason. The next speech in this symposium talks about the lineage of Jesus and how amazing it is that it's preserved and accurate.
Luke traces Jesus' natural descent through David's son Nathan down to his mother Mary. Matthew, on the other hand, traces Jesus' legal right to the throne of David through Solomon down to his adoptive father Joseph. Jesus' genealogy fulfilled a prophecy spanning hundreds of years, giving us confidence that he is the promised Messiah.
This completely ignores why the genealogist exists in the gospel, mainly to appeal to Jewish audiences, connecting Jesus to the most important characters of the Tanakh. The next speech, however, talks about deep Bible prophecy, so deep that it's more of an insane reach than Bible prophecy. The speaker does a really bad job at explaining it, but luckily, nowadays, we get a video that summarizes what the speech was supposed to be about anyway.
More than 500 years before Jesus' birth, the angel Gabriel revealed the exact timing of the arrival of the Messiah to the prophet Daniel. Jehovah's angel told Daniel, "From the issuing of the word to restore and to rebuild Jerusalem, until Messiah the leader, there will be 7 weeks, also 62 weeks, a total of 69 weeks. 69 weeks is 483 days. The word to rebuild Jerusalem was given in the year 455 BCE. This marked the beginning of the 69 weeks. However, the Messiah did not appear 483 days later. But if we apply the scriptural formula of a day for a year and count forward 483 years instead of days, that brings us from 455 BCE to 29 CE.
This is also a common belief in Christianity. If you ask a Christian what this means, they will tell you it's about Jesus. If you ask a Jewish scholar what this means, they'll tell you this prophecy got fulfilled long before Jesus arrived and doesn't apply to Jesus. But thankfully, that's the end of this symposium. For now. Turns out now they're making symposiums and breaking them into a couple of parts, so we'll get to hear the second part in the Saturday session. Yay. Instead, we only have one talk before the long-awaited intermission, the only enjoyable part of any convention. And that speech is about yet another weird Jehovah's Witness belief taken by extrapolating what a single Bible verse says. The belief that Satan rules the world.
Well, did you see what Satan offered Jesus? He offered him all the kingdoms of the inhabited earth. And we saw that depicted in our video drama earlier. And Satan even acknowledged that such authority had been handed over to him. Well, that's a profound statement. But was it true? Well, think about it. In that conversation, Jesus never disputed or denied that the devil had that power. In fact, 3 years later, during his last days on earth, Jesus referred to Satan as the ruler of the world.
This is it. This is all their proof for believing that the devil rules the world instead of God. 2 out of context verses. At first, it sounds kind of true. One verse even has Jesus saying that Satan rules the world, but that's not what the Bible really says, because all of these other Bible verses say that God rules over the world. So, what gives? Well, it's a bit more complicated than what Jehovah's Witnesses teach. They teach that since these 2 out of context verses talk about Satan ruling the world, that Satan is the total and complete ruler of the entire world since Adam, in what they called the sovereignty issue. They believe that when Adam and Eve sinned, this whole issue about sovereignty started brewing in the heavens. That is super important, but they forgot to include it in the Bible. According to them, this raised the issue: should Jehovah govern over humans or should Satan? And Jehovah decided to allow Satan to rule over the world for a while just because he knew he'd fuck it up, condemning all of humanity to date to death and suffering in what's essentially a pissing contest between 2 co-workers. And believe it or not, they're pretty much alone in this interpretation of the Bible. Most Christians, not all of them, but most Christians believe that Satan can influence fallen systems, but can't override free will or God's grace, or even that Satan doesn't have any autonomous power, only what's allowed by God. Now, I believe that the Bible contradicts itself because when they wrote the Old Testament, Jesus and Satan didn't exist, and the Old Testament is basically about how cool and awesome and powerful Yahweh is. But what Jehovah's Witnesses believe makes absolutely no sense. Not only because this super important part of the biblical narrative isn't in the biblical narrative, but because we see God constantly intervening in the Bible. He clearly isn't allowing Satan to rule over earth however he sees fit, knowing that he'll fail when he resetted humanity with Noah, or when he slaughtered Sodom and Gomorrah, or when he helped supernaturally so his followers can topple empires, or get a new Jesus drama and such. The Jehovah's Witness interpretation is nothing but cult manipulation methods to otherize outsiders and control insiders' conduct, telling them that they need to prove Jehovah right with every single action they take. And the notion that Jehovah is just allowing Satan to rule over the planet to show he won't be able to do it is dismantled in this exact speech.
It says, let every person be in subjection to the superior authorities, for there is no authority except by God. The existing authorities stand placed in their relative positions by God. Now that expression, superior authorities, what does it mean? Well, it refers to human rulers who have power and control over others. So these human rulers are placed in their position by God, where he allows them to exist.
Did you see how he tries to editorialize the Bible at the end there so it would fit with their narrative? According to what he read, Jehovah doesn't allow authorities to exist. He literally just said that Jehovah placed the authorities right there. That's a completely different thing. Jehovah's Witnesses are here literally rewriting the Bible on the go to make it fit their dumb doctrine because the Bible doesn't agree with what they teach. This is yet another wrong and unbiblical Jehovah's Witness teaching that gets debunked by reading the Bible.
Jesus taught that his kingdom is no part of this world. So if we are following Jesus, we're supporters of that kingdom, we must avoid any activity, including employment, that violates our neutral stand toward human governments. So that means that we would not learn war anymore.
They literally just showed in the drama soldiers asking John what they should do.
Those in military service were asking him,
what should we do to not harass anybody or accuse anybody falsely, but be satisfied with your provisions?
This convention is breaking off at the seams if you know where to look. There's a video talking about Jehovah's Witnesses suffering due to their unbiblical rules on serving in the military, saluting the flag, which is giving Caesar what he's own in my book, and the Malawi's case, where the call decided that witnesses from Malawi couldn't get a state card because it was linked to the only political party at the time, while ignoring that they also allowed witnesses in the United States at the same time to bribe officials to avoid military service while getting enlisted into military reserves. And after the intermission, we come back to yet another symposium. This symposium is made to recontextualize the story of Satan tempting Jesus and try to make it seem like it's about a completely different thing: apostates. Apostates to this religion is a derogatory term to mean anyone who is against this religion or its leaders. So to them, Satan is the biggest apostates, and people like me are like average apostates. So since Jesus to Jehovah's Witnesses is the perfect Jehovah's Witness, it makes sense that he was tempted by the biggest apostate. And they do this with this symposium that luckily summarizes and dramatizes every lesson of every speech into a simple and ultra culty message. The first reinterpretation of the story of Satan tempting Jesus starts with the temptations of transforming the rocks into bread.
Jesus was hungry, and so Satan appealed to Jesus' natural desire for food.
This is all to say that it's normal to have human needs, but they must be satisfied according to whatever the Jehovah's Witnesses have decided. And in the drama, we'll learn that's exactly like when you're scrolling on Instagram and you see someone's beach vacation pics.
These women are barely wearing anything. How did this stuff even get on my feed?
Man must live not on bread alone, but on every word that comes from Jehovah's mouth.
If this app could lead me to damage my relationship with Jehovah, it's not for me.
Yup, what Jehovah's Witnesses are learning during this convention is that they should consider deleting any app that shows anyone in fewer clothes. You know, like Jesus earlier today. You can see just how male-centric and sexually repressed this religion is. We'll examine this whole drama in detail in a live stream or a video. I haven't decided yet. But for now, let's go to the next thing that Jehovah's Witnesses rewrite about Satan's temptations to demonize anyone who disagrees with this religion. And that is the desire to join a Jehovah's Witness Facebook group to support cancer patients if you have cancer. No, really, that's what the drama is about.
Make sure we look good. This would actually be a perfect post for this group that I follow. You should join. It's for witnesses, and we share stories about our personal health journeys and spiritual thoughts. It is very inspiring. If people could hear your truth, you would be an encouragement to so many people.
I don't think anybody wants to hear from me.
Shayla, you really need to think more of yourself. When was the last time you really felt heard? Cancer has taken so much from you. Don't you want to feel better?
Yes, this other woman is telling this lady with cancer that she should join an online group of Jehovah's Witnesses and share her story with other people who share her faith across the world. And for that, she is the equivalent of the devil in this story.
Hey everyone, I just wanted to share my daily scriptural tip with you guys. Thank you so much for following all of my videos.
Hey everyone around the world, I want to thank you so much for all of your prayers, and especially...
Hi everyone that may be watching. I just really wanted to share with you all my truth about this whole experience.
Updating friends and family is one thing, but this feels wrong.
If you are a son of God, throw yourself down.
Satan tried to get Jesus to draw undue attention to himself.
You must not put Jehovah your God to the test.
No matter what I'm going through, I need to focus on what Jehovah promises and not bring unnecessary attention to myself.
Yup, that's the lesson. Satan tried to get Jesus to jump off a cliff because that would have caught people's attention, just like you recording yourself talking about your experience of having cancer is bad because that would catch other people's attention, even though that's just so other people can benefit from it. That's only allowed to happen in environments fully controlled by the religion, like a convention with a heavily rehearsed story, never on your own. This is probably because with the rise of social media, some Jehovah's Witnesses have gained some following, doing nothing but sharing their life inside this cult, gaining followers from inside this cult. And this cult obviously hates it. They absolutely have no biblical reason to hate it, but Jehovah's Witnesses aren't allowed to be famous, they decided. And that unbiblical prohibition is so important that you can't even be seen as trying to pursue that by recording your experience with cancer and sharing it on social media. And in the next segment, this couple crystallizes as our Satan representations by telling a young man that there are other options after basic school besides spending his life inside a cult compound cleaning windows.
I'm thinking about applying to Bethel.
Okay, Bethel. All right, really?
Yeah, I've been wanting to do it since I was a kid.
Okay. Bethel's nice, but you got to think about your future.
Yeah.
How will you support yourself, or how would you support a wife after Bethel?
You can still serve Jehovah right here.
That's true.
I know. I get it. When I was your age, they told me the end could come tomorrow, too.
Yeah.
But look at us. We have a real comfortable life.
And we're still witnesses, Aiden. You're so young and smart. There's so many opportunities open to you right now. It's nice that you have spiritual goals, truly. But you also need to be realistic.
He's being realistic.
Yeah, and there's a lot of ways you can serve Jehovah at Bethel.
Like what? Washing windows?
But if it means putting Jehovah first, is there anything wrong with that?
Of course, nothing's wrong with that. It's just that he could have so much more.
That's the devil speaking. That's just like when the devil tempted Jesus, telling him that he could have every kingdom in the world. No, seriously, that's their point.
Satan has always done this. He tried to tempt Jesus with what the world could offer. But Jesus didn't focus on himself. He focused on Jehovah and doing his will. That's what I'm gonna do.
Submitting your application may open a door of opportunity to serve Jehovah and his organization in a variety of ways.
Damn, they're really going after Instagram in this one, huh? Good thing he decided to clean windows inside the cult compound instead of trying to get a Lambo, because we all know those are the only two available options that exist. And they take their corruption of the story of Jesus being tempted by Satan to its full conclusion, completely merging this pseudo-apostate guy with the devil himself in this next segment, because he is committing the worst sin you can commit when you're inside this cult. Negative talk against the organization.
Bethel's nice, but you have to think about your future.
If people could hear your truth, you would be an encouragement to so many people.
When I was your age, they told me all the time that the end could come tomorrow. But look at us. We're still here, and we've been able to make it.
What's wrong?
I'm worried about them. They're different.
Yeah. I kind of felt that too.
You know, whenever I ask him how things going in their congregation, he won't give me a straight answer.
Really?
And he's always shifting the conversation to something negative about the organization.
How?
Notice how he doesn't talk about whether or not what he's saying is true. That's never a factor. What matters is that it's negative. Even if it's true, you're not supposed to say negative things about this organization. That's because this guy and his wife have been the Satan equivalent during this whole dramatization, and they're about to take things one step further.
Hey, Justin, I want you to read this article I just sent you. It's going to change the way you see the organization. Get back to me. Did you get that message I sent you?
Why would you send that to me? Better yet, why are you reading that garbage? It's all lies.
Garbage? How do you know if it's garbage if you haven't even read it?
Because it's negative. If it's negative, it's garbage, regardless of whether it's true or not.
Listen, you need to talk with your elders, because you need help. And if you don't speak to them, I will.
Wow, that's what you feel. I need help. I don't need any help, man. I'm finding the answers to my questions, bro, and I'm keeping an open mind.
Open mind? You're ignoring Jehovah's thinking. The truth saved our lives.
Look, man, how long have we known each other? I would never steer you wrong. I'm not out to hurt you. I'm trying to help you. How long have you known me?
Tell these stones to become loaves of bread.
I'm trying to share with you the truth.
Throw yourself down.
Do you really think I would steer you wrong?
I will give you all this authority.
I definitely don't need any help from them.
Do an act of worship before me.
It's done. Apostates is when you speak negative about this religion. Just like when Satan told Jesus to turn the stones into bread. Same thing. And anyone who is speaking ill about this religion is channeling Satan. By listening to them, you're listening to Satan. That's why they show Satan's voice from the guy tempting the Jehovah's Witnesses with negative facts about this religion. Do you see just how much they have to stretch the Bible just to make it sound like you're not supposed to listen to anything negative about the governing body? They literally are saying that this is the equivalent of Satan tempting Jesus to jump off a cliff. This is not just manipulative and unbiblical. It doesn't even have any logic you can follow. This isn't tempting. This is just showing people the truth about their religion. There's no tempting involved.
Go away, Satan.
Stop. There's only one truth, and it comes from Jehovah.
You're gonna walk away like that? What are you so afraid of? Man, stop being a coward. Don't be weak. They're just telling you what you need to do. You need to think for yourself.
For it is written, it is Jehovah your God you must worship. And it is to him alone you must render sacred service.
There's only one truth, and it comes from Jehovah. Therefore, anything that comes from this cult is true, and anything negative about this religion is false because it doesn't come from this cult. This is how Jehovah's Witnesses are brainwashed into thinking that no valid criticism exists against their cult because they're conditioned to think this way. Anything negative about this cult is either false at best or a direct machination of Satan himself at worst. And anyone who shares it is channeling Satan. This is the most outright manipulative drama I've seen on apostates, directly and literally demonizing them for sharing the truth that this cult doesn't want members to know about. After this terrible drama, we get the last symposium of the day called Lessons from the Land of Jesus, and it's just a really boring series of speeches talking about sometimes incorrect information about the places that Jesus visited, all while cutting back to showing videos of the Jehovah's Witness version of Indiana Jones.
Well, I'm glad you didn't take me there. This short hike was hard enough.
Yeah, and we're gonna skip all of that because I guarantee even the speakers won't remember their speeches after they gave them. And that's how we get to the end of the Friday program of this brand new convention. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and maybe even support me like these guys over here. Any amount of money for any amount of time will get you a few extra perks like extra videos, downloadables, and more.